What if I told you that aging is less about losing and more about uncovering? That the lines on our face, the silver in our hair, and the slowing of our bodies are not markers of decline, but invitations to authenticity. In our 20s and 30s, masculinity and femininity are often defined by performance. Men are told to man up, to achieve, to conquer, to control. Women are taught to be nice, to nurture, to balance, to adapt. These performances shape our early identity. They are necessary in a world that rewards appearances, productivity, and social conformity. But they are not the whole story. By the time we reach 60, the masks begin to fall. Life, with all its losses, triumphs, and reflections, strips away the urgency to perform. What remains is the core, the true masculine and feminine essence that was always inside, waiting to be expressed. And it is here, in this stage of life, that the magic happens. For men, the revelation is profound. In youth, strength is external. It is physical prowess, career success, and the ability to protect. Emotional vulnerability is often seen as a threat to that strength. But after 60, men start to see strength differently. They discover that true masculinity is not about domination or control. It is about presence, integrity, and emotional depth. A man who has lived fully learns that showing emotion, admitting mistakes, and expressing tenderness are not weaknesses. They are hallmarks of enduring strength. A man over 60 can laugh at his own vulnerabilities, sit with his discomfort, and navigate emotions with a calm authority that no amount of physical power could ever teach. This is the deeper masculine, a strength that is patient, steady, and aware. It is not loud or performative, it is felt. Women, often intuitively, sense this shift. They recognize a man who is emotionally available, who can listen without judgment, who can hold space for others' feelings. These qualities, hidden in earlier decades behind ambition and performance, now shine with clarity. Women, on the other hand, experience their own awakening. In youth, femininity is often framed as outwardly soft, accommodating, and relational. Women spend years prioritizing others' expectations, smoothing conflicts, and nurturing relationships, sometimes at the expense of themselves. But after 60, a transformation occurs. Women become stronger internally, more attuned to their own needs, desires, and boundaries. They speak with clarity, they act with decisiveness, and in this, they reveal the core of feminine power, a combination of insight, emotional intelligence, and grounded self-respect that radiates naturally. This inner strength does not make women less feminine. It makes them more complete. It is the strength described in books like Women Who Run with the Wolves, a femininity that is unapologetically connected to intuition, courage, and authenticity. A woman over 60 can be tender and compassionate, yet unafraid to claim her space, her voice, and her truth. She no longer needs external validation to feel worthy. Her power is quiet, natural, and magnetic. What is remarkable is how these shifts in men and women complement each other. The softening of men and the strengthening of women create a synergy that is rarely possible in earlier decades. A softened man is receptive to depth, ready for intimacy, and unafraid of emotional connection. A strengthened woman can meet him fully, not with need, but with presence, curiosity, and self-assuredness. Together, they create a new kind of partnership, one built not on performance, but on authenticity. In this space, relationships evolve from transactional to transformational. The push and pull of gender roles diminishes. Instead of one person always leading or giving while the other receives, both engage as whole humans. Emotional labor becomes mutual, empathy becomes reciprocal, and intimacy deepens in ways that were impossible when roles were rigid and expectations were heavy. It is also here that the notion of attractiveness undergoes its most radical shift. Youthful attraction often relies on superficial cues, beauty, strength, vitality. Later, life attraction, by contrast, is rooted in essence. It is felt in the way someone listens, in the steadiness of presence, in the calm confidence of someone who has lived, learned, and emerged from life's trials with grace. The softened man exudes reliability, warmth, and emotional intelligence. The strong woman exudes discernment, confidence, and authenticity. These qualities, cultivated over decades, are infinitely more magnetic than the temporary allure of looks or status. Moreover, this stage of life allows us to see ourselves and each other more clearly. Past insecurities, performances, and pretenses fall away. Men and women begin to recognize not just each other's potential, but also their own. There is a liberation in knowing that who you are now, softened, strengthened, seasoned, is enough. No masks, no roles, no chasing of approval, just presence, just truth, just the essence of who you've always been, and with that clarity comes a remarkable gift, the ability to love more fully. Love after 60 is less about needing someone to complete you, and more about sharing the fullness of yourself. A softened man can meet a strong woman with acceptance, curiosity, and care. A strong woman can meet a softened man with trust, respect, and passion. Together they craft a love that is enduring, tender, and transformative, not dependent on illusion, but nourished by reality. We often underestimate the power of this stage of life. We see aging through the lens of loss, lost youth, lost vigor, lost opportunity. But the truth is that aging reveals what was always hidden. It exposes the essence beneath the exterior. It allows masculinity and femininity to shed pretense and shine in their truest forms. And it is in these truths that we discover the deepest joy, the richest connection, and the most profound love. The shift is not only relational, it is personal. Each of us learns to navigate the world with the wisdom of experience, the patience of years, and the courage to embrace what we truly are. Men and women learn that softening is not surrender, and that strengthening is not rigidity. They learn that emotional depth, self-respect, and authenticity are the real markers of power, and they learn that life after 60 is not an ending. It is the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where the masks drop, the heart opens, and the soul emerges fully. The true masculine and feminine core is not defined by external accomplishments, physical appeal, or societal expectations. It is defined by presence, integrity, emotional courage, and the ability to connect deeply with oneself and with others. Aging, when embraced consciously, is a revelation. It is a process of uncovering the layers, peeling back the fears and illusions, and stepping into the authenticity that has always been waiting. This is why relationships, intimacy, and connection can reach their peak after 60. Because by this age, both men and women have learned lessons that cannot be taught in youth. They have faced disappointment, joy, failure, and triumph. They have learned to tolerate uncertainty and embrace change. And they have learned, finally, that the most compelling form of attraction, the kind that endures, comes not from what we do, but from who we are. So the question becomes, will you allow yourself to soften and strengthen in these new ways? Will you embrace the revelation that aging is not a loss of vitality, but a return to essence? Will you step fully into the masculine or feminine power that life has nurtured inside you all along? Because the truth is, the later decades are not about retreating from life. They are about engaging with it on a deeper, richer, and more authentic level. They are about showing up as the person you were always meant to be. And in doing so, you discover a freedom, a presence, and a connection that makes every year that came before feel like preparation for this very moment. Here, in the unfolding of age, lies a paradox. The world may see softening as weakness and strengthening as rigidity, but those who understand the journey know the truth. Softening and strengthening are not opposites. They are complementary. They are the dance of life, the interplay of experience and essence, the keys to love, joy, and fulfillment that grow ever deeper with time. And as we embrace this truth, we realize that aging is not something to fear. It is something to celebrate. It is the unveiling of the self that has been waiting patiently beneath the surface. The masculine softens into wisdom. The feminine strengthens into authenticity. Together, they meet in a space of profound connection, intimacy, and understanding. And in that meeting, we see, feel, and experience the most extraordinary truth of all, that life after 60 is not the closing of a story. It is the opening of a life fully lived, a heart fully known, and a soul fully awake. Have you noticed how men seem to carry a certain calmness after 60, a quiet steadiness that wasn't always there, and how women, at the same age, often radiate clarity and confidence in ways that turn heads not for their youth, but for the sheer presence they carry? There's a reason for this. Life, with its trials, triumphs, and relentless passage of time, reshapes us in ways that are subtle but profound. And what we call softening in men and strengthening in women is not random. It's the natural unfolding of emotional and psychological growth. For men, much of life has been a performance of control. From a young age, society teaches them to be stoic, to suppress fear, to manage emotions carefully. Strength is equated with restraint. Vulnerability is equated with failure. But after 60, there's an unexpected liberation. The stakes feel lower. Career pressures are often behind them. Children, if they had them, are grown. The urgent need to prove oneself has softened. In this space, men start to feel safe enough to explore emotions they once avoided. They notice sadness, joy, fear, and tenderness without panic or shame. They begin to realize that expressing emotions does not diminish them. It completes them. This softening is a gift not just to themselves, but to everyone around them. A man who has softened emotionally can listen without judgment. He can comfort without fixing. He can connect without the compulsion to control. His presence becomes reassuring because it is grounded in authenticity, not performance. This is the quiet power of the seasoned masculine. It is deeply attractive because it signals safety, reliability, and understanding, the very qualities women often subconsciously seek in a partner. Meanwhile, women are undergoing their own transformation, but in a different way. While men soften, women strengthen. Why? Because women often spend decades prioritizing others, partners, children, coworkers, social expectations. Their own voice, desires, and priorities get layered beneath duty, care, and societal pressure. But as women reach 60, the layers begin to peel away. They've lived enough, observed enough, and endured enough to recognize what truly matters to them. They no longer seek permission to be themselves. They act from their own truth. Confidence emerges naturally when you've faced life fully and decided to honor your own needs and values. Clarity comes with experience. Women see patterns in relationships and life more clearly. They can discern who deserves their energy and who does not. They no longer get caught in cycles of people, pleasing or trying to fix situations beyond their control. Boundaries become not just necessary but sacred. This internal strengthening radiates outward. It is unmistakable to those around them. It's the quiet, magnetic aura of a woman who knows herself, who trusts herself, and who honors her own wisdom. What's extraordinary is how these shifts in men and women complement each other. A softened man is open to deeper connection, while a strengthened woman can meet him fully without fear or need. Emotional intimacy, which often eluded both in younger decades due to fear or social expectation, becomes easier to achieve. Conversations are richer, silences are comfortable, and moments of touch or presence carry profound meaning. Think about it. Decades earlier, the same man might have suppressed his emotions, fearing judgment. The same woman might have doubted herself, questioning her worth. Now, roles reverse in a way. He becomes more tender, she becomes more grounded, and the synergy created is not accidental. It's the natural outcome of years of growth, reflection, and experience. This is why relationships after 60 often feel richer, calmer, and more satisfying than those in youth. It's not because passion disappears, it evolves. Physical attraction still matters, but emotional presence carries more weight. The softening of men allows them to empathize, communicate, and love in ways they could not before. The strengthening of women allows them to assert themselves, trust their judgment, and engage in relationships from a place of completeness, not need. The shift also reflects a deep alignment with authenticity. Men start letting go of the need to appear invulnerable, realizing that emotional openness is a strength, not a liability. Women shed the need to be endlessly accommodating, recognizing that their voice, desires, and choices are valuable. In essence, both genders are learning to live in alignment with their inner truths, free from the masks and performances that once defined them. And the impact is more than personal. It is relational. Partners sense this shift immediately. They respond not to the old patterns of need or control, but to a presence that is grounded, assured, and emotionally available. Conflicts become less about dominance and more about resolution. Communication deepens because both parties can speak honestly without fear of rejection. Love becomes less about dependency and more about shared growth, respect, and understanding. Even the way men and women perceive attractiveness changes in this stage of life. Youthful attraction often hinges on superficial markers, appearance, status, or performance. But after 60, the magnetic pull is rooted in essence. A softened man who carries emotional steadiness, humor, and empathy becomes profoundly attractive. A strong woman who radiates self-respect, insight, and decisiveness captivates naturally. Their appeal is less about trying to impress and more about being fully themselves. And that authenticity resonates far deeper than any performance ever could. It's important to note that this softening and strengthening doesn't happen automatically. It is the result of reflection, experience, and often conscious choice. A man who resists vulnerability may remain closed off, but the ones who embrace emotional growth discover a freedom previously unimaginable. A woman who clings to people, pleasing or fear, may still doubt herself, but those who embrace clarity and self-respect find empowerment that changes every relationship and interaction. This stage of life also allows for a kind of integration that was difficult to achieve earlier. The emotional softness of men combines with the clarity and strength of women to create relationships that are balanced and fulfilling. Both genders bring their best versions to the table, men with calmness, presence, and empathy, women with confidence, decisiveness, and authenticity. Together, they form partnerships that are not about filling gaps or compensating for weaknesses, but about mutual growth, understanding, and joy. And in this dynamic, intimacy transforms. It moves beyond surface desire into a soulful connection. Physical touch is enriched by emotional safety. Conversation is deepened by honesty and openness. Moments of laughter and playfulness are amplified because they come from a place of comfort and trust. Love, in this sense, is no longer transactional. It is a reflection of two whole humans meeting fully and openly. So why do men soften and women strengthen after 60? Because life, in its wisdom, finally gives them the space and perspective to do so. Men see that vulnerability is power. Women see that authenticity is liberation. Both discover that the masks they wore for decades are unnecessary. Both discover that emotional connection, self-respect, and presence matter far more than approval, performance, or youth. And the most extraordinary part is that this process is not about losing anything. It is about gaining everything. Men gain emotional depth, relational ease, and a calm strength. Women gain clarity, confidence, and inner authority. Together, they gain a capacity for love, intimacy, and partnership that is richer, steadier, and more satisfying than anything they experienced in youth. The transformation is subtle but profound. Men become more present, women become more centered. Emotional awareness meets self-respect. Tenderness meets decisiveness, and the world of relationships, which once felt like a battlefield of expectations and performances, becomes a landscape of understanding, growth, and shared fulfillment. In the end, this softening and strengthening is not merely a feature of aging. It is a revelation. It is the unveiling of the authentic selves that were always there, waiting for the right time to emerge. It is the reward of decades of living, learning, and reflecting. And for those who embrace it, life after 60 is not a decline. It is the beginning of a phase filled with clarity, emotional richness, and authentic connection that can surpass anything that came before. Men soften because they finally understand that strength is measured in presence, not control. Women strengthen because they finally understand that power lies in authenticity, not approval. And together, in this beautiful, natural dance, they create a version of masculinity and femininity that is not only compelling but deeply human, enduring, and transformative. Imagine two people, each carrying decades of life experience, meeting not to perform a role but to share a truth. That is what happens when the shifts we've been talking about, men softening, women strengthening, intersect in relationships after 60. The difference is profound. Where relationships in earlier decades often carried tension, imbalance, and misunderstanding, later, life partnerships are built on awareness, maturity, and mutual respect. The very shifts that occur within individuals, the softening of emotional walls in men, the crystallization of confidence in women, create the conditions for partnerships that are not just lasting but deeply fulfilling. One of the most immediate effects is balance. In youth, dynamics between men and women are often shaped by societal roles and learned behaviors rather than personal truth. Men may dominate, withdraw, or compete emotionally, while women may defer, appease, or overgive. The interplay can be a constant dance of imbalance, one person giving more, the other taking more, and both feeling unseen in some way. But after 60, the individual transformations begin to rebalance this dance naturally. A man who is softened emotionally no longer feels the need to dominate or control. He can listen, he can respond with empathy, and he can tolerate emotional complexity without feeling threatened. A woman who has strengthened her confidence no longer feels compelled to seek validation or approval. She can set boundaries, speak her mind, and trust her own judgment. These internal shifts allow for mutual respect to emerge effortlessly. Conflict becomes less about power struggles and more about understanding. Compromise becomes a natural process, not a painful negotiation. The deepening comes from emotional availability. In earlier life, many men guard their emotions, fearing vulnerability or ridicule. Women, meanwhile, may hesitate to assert their desires, worrying about how they will be perceived. After 60, the emotional armor begins to melt. Men find that sharing fears, regrets, or tenderness strengthens, rather than weakens, the bond. Women, armed with clarity and confidence, can communicate desires and boundaries without defensiveness. The combination is transformational. Each partner experiences the other fully, not partially. Each can offer and receive intimacy without pretense or hesitation. Another factor is patience. Time teaches perspective. People who have lived more than half a century understand that most disagreements are not existential. They learn to pause, to reflect, and to choose responses rather than reacting impulsively. A softened man can handle disagreements calmly, seeing them as opportunities for growth rather than threats to his ego. A strong woman can assert herself firmly but without hostility, understanding the importance of both honesty and kindness. The result is not a conflict-free relationship. Those don't exist, but one where tension is manageable, constructive, and even bonding. Mutual appreciation also grows in this phase of life. A man who has embraced emotional openness naturally values the strength and clarity a woman brings to the relationship. He recognizes her insights, her boundaries, and her ability to navigate life with wisdom. He is drawn to her not because she fulfills a societal ideal, but because she embodies a depth that complements his own evolution. Likewise, a woman who has grown confident and self-aware appreciates the gentleness, patience, and authenticity of a softened man. She sees him as a partner in life, not an obstacle to her independence. They reinforce each other's growth, creating a cycle of mutual enrichment. Communication becomes richer and more honest. Men speak from the heart because they no longer fear judgment. Women speak from experience because they no longer fear dismissal. Conversations carry weight, nuance, and humor. Silence is no longer awkward. It is comfortable, even meaningful. Together, they navigate life's complexities with collaboration rather than contention. Emotional intimacy deepens not because of effortful strategies, but because both individuals have arrived at a point in life where authenticity matters more than performance. The balance extends to roles in everyday life as well. Household responsibilities, decision. decision-making, and social obligations are approached with practicality, respect, and fairness. The softening of men often leads them to participate more equally in emotional and domestic labor, while the strengthening of women allows them to engage without resentment or overcompensation. There is freedom in this dynamic. Both partners can contribute in ways that feel natural and rewarding, rather than dictated by outdated expectations. This balance also influences sexual and romantic intimacy. Attraction in later life is less dependent on youthful vigor or physical perfection, and more rooted in presence, trust, and emotional safety. A softened man is more attuned to the emotional needs of his partner, creating an environment where affection, passion, and intimacy flourish naturally. A strong woman is more aware of her own desires and can communicate them openly, enhancing connection rather than creating tension. Together, they experience intimacy as a holistic, deeply satisfying expression of connection rather than a performance or obligation. The impact reaches beyond the couple. Friendships, family relationships, and social interactions are all enhanced by this internal balance. People who have navigated their own emotional growth tend to attract and nurture relationships that are healthy, honest, and mutually rewarding. The partnership between a softened man and a strengthened woman becomes a model of relational intelligence, influencing children, grandchildren, and communities in subtle but profound ways. Perhaps most importantly, these shifts foster resilience. Life after 60 is not without challenges. Health changes, loss, and transitions are inevitable. But in a relationship built on emotional softness, confidence, and clarity, challenges are met with collaboration rather than blame. Partners support each other in ways that are adaptive, compassionate, and effective. They have learned that mutual understanding and respect are more powerful than control, manipulation, or avoidance. Love becomes an ongoing conversation rather than a static state. Each partner evolves, and the relationship evolves alongside them. The softening of men allows for greater empathy and patience. The strengthening of women allows for greater clarity and boundaries. Together, these qualities create a dynamic in which both individuals thrive, not in spite of each other, but because of each other. They become co-creators of a life that is emotionally rich, deeply connected, and profoundly satisfying. And there is freedom in this depth. There is liberation from the pressures of performance, societal expectation, and fear of inadequacy. Both partners can simply be themselves, knowing that authenticity is not only accepted but cherished. This freedom transforms everyday interactions, infusing them with playfulness, laughter, and a genuine sense of joy. Emotional intimacy becomes as natural as breathing. Balance becomes second nature. The most remarkable aspect of these relationships is their resilience. They endure not because of convenience or habit, but because they are rooted in the very essence of what each partner has become. Emotional softness, confidence, and clarity act as anchors, helping couples weather life's storms with grace. They create a foundation of trust and mutual respect that allows love to flourish in ways that are often unattainable in younger years. As these partnerships deepen, each individual gains perspective on their own growth as well. Men see the value of tenderness, empathy, and vulnerability. Women see the power of confidence, clarity, and self-respect. They mirror each other's strengths, complement each other's weaknesses, and co-create a relational ecosystem in which both can thrive. In essence, these shifts, the softening of men and the strengthening of women, are what make relationships after 60 uniquely profound. They move from transactional to transformational. They shift from roles and expectations to authenticity and connection. They foster emotional depth, mutual respect, and a resilience that is rarely seen in earlier decades. They create a partnership in which love is not about dependency or performance, but about presence, understanding, and shared growth. This is the gift of later life relationships, a chance to love more deeply, communicate more honestly, and connect more authentically than ever before. It is a phase of life where emotional maturity and self-awareness intersect, creating partnerships that are balanced, resilient, and deeply fulfilling. In these relationships, men's softness and women's strength are not just traits. They are catalysts for deeper love, richer intimacy, and enduring connection. Think about this for a moment. Why is it that someone's presence, their steadiness, or the way they make you feel safe and seen, often leaves a deeper mark than their appearance ever could? In the early years of life, physical attraction is undeniably powerful. Youthful vigor, beauty, and fitness often dominate our perception of desirability. But as we age, a subtle yet profound truth emerges: emotional maturity, the kind born from decades of experience, reflection, and resilience, becomes far more magnetic than mere physical attributes. Emotional maturity is compelling because it signals stability and reliability. A man who has softened emotionally is able to handle life's uncertainties without panic or defensiveness. A woman who has strengthened herself can engage with honesty and clarity, without manipulation or insecurity. These qualities are attractive because they offer safety, a rare commodity in a world where many relationships are turbulent, fleeting, or superficial. When someone demonstrates emotional awareness, patience, and empathy, they become magnetic in ways no outward appearance can replicate. Physical beauty fades, wrinkles appear, hair grays, energy fluctuates, but emotional presence grows richer with time. Someone who can listen deeply, communicate thoughtfully, and navigate their own emotions gracefully becomes irresistible because they offer connection on a level that transcends the surface. It is not about perfection. It is about authenticity. Emotional maturity signals that a person has learned from life, faced challenges, and developed a capacity to love, support, and engage with another human being fully. That kind of presence is rare, and when it appears, it commands attention. Think about attraction in the context of intimacy. In younger years, the spark is often sparked by novelty, excitement, or appearance. But emotional maturity shifts that dynamic entirely. A person who can remain calm under stress, who can empathize with your experiences, who can communicate without defensiveness, creates an environment where intimacy can flourish naturally. There is no pretense, no games, no need to prove oneself, just a safe, accepting space where connection can deepen. And that safety, that reliability, is profoundly attractive. Emotional maturity also enhances the experience of shared life. A mature man or woman does not need constant validation. They do not compete for attention in ways that are draining or performative. Instead, they offer presence, engagement, and support. They are comfortable with silence, capable of compromise, and willing to show vulnerability without fear. This kind of emotional availability is magnetic because it allows the other person to also show up fully, without fear of judgment or rejection. It is the ultimate form of freedom in a relationship, to be fully seen and accepted. Moreover, emotional maturity signals self-awareness. People who have cultivated it understand their own needs, desires, and boundaries. They know what brings them joy, what triggers stress, and how to navigate both. This awareness creates a compelling contrast to the uncertainty, drama, and immaturity often encountered in younger or less reflective individuals. A woman who is confident in her feelings and decisions, or a man who can express emotions without fear, communicates value in a way that physical appearance alone cannot. They convey reliability, insight, and the promise of a balanced partnership. Another factor is resilience. Life after decades inevitably brings loss, disappointment, and setbacks. Those who have developed emotional maturity have endured hardship and emerged wiser. This resilience is inherently attractive because it signals that the person is capable of handling the complexities of real life alongside a partner. Physical beauty, by itself, offers no such guarantee. Emotional strength provides both comfort and inspiration. It demonstrates that someone can navigate difficulties without unraveling, creating a foundation for enduring connection. The paradox of attractiveness is fascinating. The very traits that are invisible at first glance, compassion, empathy, patience, self-awareness, become far more compelling than those that are immediately apparent. A man's gentle steadiness, a woman's quiet confidence, the ability of either to navigate life with integrity and kindness, creates an allure that outlasts physical appearance. This is why couples often find their bond deepening as they age. It is not about the surface spark anymore. It is about resonance of spirit, alignment of values, and the richness of shared emotional life. Emotional maturity also transforms communication in ways that amplify attraction. Mature individuals listen without judgment, respond thoughtfully, and express their needs clearly. They do not rely on manipulation, dramatics, or games. They can apologize when wrong and forgive when hurt. This ability to engage in honest, respectful, and open interaction fosters trust, which is foundational to any lasting relationship. Trust, as we know, is a cornerstone of attraction that goes far beyond appearances. In addition, emotional maturity allows for deeper empathy. A man who has softened or a woman who has strengthened can understand and respond to their partner's feelings in ways that validate, comfort, and connect. This creates an intimacy that is profoundly magnetic. When someone can make you feel truly understood, seen, and supported, you are drawn to them not for what they look like, but for how they make you feel. Physical attraction may initiate interest, but emotional maturity sustains it. There is also the element of confidence intertwined with emotional intelligence. People who have developed emotional maturity are generally more comfortable in their own skin. They do not seek to impress or manipulate. They simply are. This natural confidence radiates, and that energy is often more attractive than youth or conventional beauty. It's the difference between someone who is admired for appearance and someone who is respected and cherished for essence. And let's not overlook the freedom this maturity brings. A mature person is no longer bound by fear of rejection or obsession with approval. They engage in relationships authentically, offering themselves fully without calculation. That freedom is seductive because it creates a dynamic of equality and reciprocity. Both partners can engage in a way that is honest, fulfilling, and growth-oriented without the need for performance or pretense. The truth is, emotional maturity reframes the way we experience desire itself. Attraction becomes layered, complex, and enduring. It is not fleeting or conditional. It is rooted in values, connection, and mutual respect. A softened man paired with a strong, self-aware woman creates a dynamic that is both tender and powerful. Their emotional depth allows them to engage with each other fully, creating bonds that are lasting, satisfying, and deeply meaningful. Even in social contexts, mature emotional presence attracts people naturally. Someone who is emotionally grounded, kind, and empathetic draws others in without effort. Their magnetism is internal, radiating outward. This is why people often describe being pulled toward older individuals who exude calm confidence, wisdom, and insight. These qualities, honed over decades, resonate on a level far beyond physical attraction. They touch the core of what humans crave in connection: safety, understanding, and authenticity. Physical qualities fade with time, emotional maturity grows. This is why relationships in later life can feel richer, more fulfilling, and more enduring. Couples report feeling a deeper sense of intimacy, satisfaction, and joy, precisely because attraction is grounded in essence rather than appearance. Emotional maturity allows partners to engage in authentic love, where passion is informed by respect and desire is enriched by connection. Ultimately, the lesson is clear: emotional maturity is not just attractive, it is transformative. It elevates relationships, deepens connection, and fosters a bond that endures beyond superficiality. Men and women who cultivate empathy, patience, clarity, and self-awareness find themselves magnetically drawn to partners who reflect and complement their growth. This kind of attraction is sustainable, nourishing, and profoundly satisfying. The most remarkable part is that this type of magnetism is accessible to everyone willing to do the work of reflection, growth, and self-awareness. Unlike physical appearance, which is fleeting and partially determined by genetics, emotional maturity is cultivated through experience, intention, and conscious practice. It is a skill, a quality, and a life strategy all in one. And in cultivating it, we not only become more attractive to others, we become more attractive to ourselves. When emotional maturity becomes the basis of attraction, relationships evolve from being superficial or conditional to being meaningful, enduring, and life-affirming. A softened man and a strong, self-assured woman create a dynamic that embodies both passion and stability. They connect on levels of mind, heart, and soul, building intimacy that is far deeper than anything youth alone can offer. This is why in later life physical qualities, though still appreciated, take a backseat. The magnetism lies in presence, steadiness, clarity, empathy, and authenticity. The dance of attraction is no longer about who appears most desirable at a glance, but about who resonates most profoundly with your inner self. And this resonance, built from decades of emotional growth, becomes the most compelling, enduring, and fulfilling form of attraction imaginable. Imagine reaching a point in life where the masks you wore for decades, the performances, the social expectations, the need to impress, are no longer necessary, where softening as a man and strengthening as a woman are not signs of compromise, but hallmarks of growth. This is the stage where embracing these changes becomes a gateway to freedom, authenticity, and a kind of intimacy that is rare and extraordinary. Freedom comes first. There's a liberation in letting go of the pressure to conform. Men who soften emotionally are no longer bound by the rigid definitions of masculinity that once dictated their every interaction. They no longer need to prove themselves through dominance, control, or suppression of feelings. They discover that true power lies in vulnerability, in the courage to feel deeply, and in the willingness to connect without pretense. Women who strengthen with clarity and confidence are free from the need to please constantly, to overextend, or to seek validation from others. They no longer have to fit into a mold that was never truly theirs. They act from their own insight, judgment, and inner authority. This freedom transforms every aspect of life. Daily decisions become easier because they are rooted in truth, not fear. Relationships are more satisfying because engagement is authentic, not performative. The energy once spent on maintaining appearances, worrying about judgment, or controlling outcomes can now be directed toward joy, curiosity, and meaningful connection. When both partners embrace this freedom, they create a relational space that is not suffocating, competitive, or conditional. It is open, expansive, and nurturing. Authenticity naturally follows freedom. When you are no longer performing to meet expectations, you step fully into who you are. Men become more emotionally available, expressive, and present, showing the parts of themselves they may have hidden for decades. Women become more self-assured, decisive, and grounded, revealing the strength that life has refined. Authenticity is magnetic because it signals integrity. You are who you are, unedited and unafraid. It creates trust in others and invites them to do the same. In relationships, authenticity transforms the dynamic completely. There is no need for games, manipulation, or pretense. Conversations are honest and meaningful. Silence is comfortable because it is shared, not imposed. Emotional expression flows naturally, and both partners are capable of receiving it without fear or defensiveness. Authenticity nurtures intimacy because it creates a safe environment where each person can be fully seen, fully heard, and fully accepted. And this brings us to a new kind of intimacy, a depth of connection that is rarely experienced in younger years. Traditional notions of intimacy often focus on passion, romance, or physical attraction. But later, life intimacy, born from emotional maturity, authenticity, and mutual growth, operates on a richer plane. It is a connection that blends emotional safety, physical closeness, intellectual engagement, and spiritual resonance. Every touch, every word, every glance carries weight because it is infused with awareness, presence, and understanding. This intimacy is paradoxical. It is both tender and powerful. Men who have softened emotionally can offer steady, compassionate support without losing themselves in the process. Women who have strengthened in clarity can assert their needs and desires while still being empathetic and nurturing. Together, they create a partnership where emotional, physical, and spiritual closeness reinforce one another. It is a bond that is resilient, satisfying, and deeply fulfilling. Freedom, authenticity, and intimacy are also transformative for self-perception. As men and women embrace these changes, they discover that they are enough exactly as they are. They no longer rely on external validation, youth, or performance to feel worthy or attractive. This self-acceptance allows them to engage with life fully, take risks in love, pursue passions, and form connections without fear. The liberation of knowing you are complete in yourself transforms not just relationships, but every aspect of living. This stage also allows for playfulness and joy, aspects often diminished in earlier decades due to responsibility or social expectation. When emotional walls soften and inner confidence strengthens, partners can laugh freely, experiment, and enjoy life without overthinking. The intimacy that emerges is playful, spontaneous, and nourishing. It is no longer about needing each other to fill gaps. It is about enhancing each other's already rich experience of life. Another profound outcome is empathy and understanding. A softened man and a strong, confident woman both carry life experience, lessons learned, and self-awareness. They can see situations clearly, respond thoughtfully, and navigate challenges with grace. This creates a partnership where compassion is abundant, judgment is minimal, and support is unwavering. Such relational maturity allows intimacy to thrive in a way that is mutually reinforcing rather than draining. Embracing these changes also reshapes attraction itself. The magnetic pull between partners evolves from superficial or temporary cues to essence, presence, and alignment. Emotional openness, clarity of self, and mutual respect become the primary drivers of attraction. This is why couples often report feeling more drawn to each other as they age, even if physical appearances have shifted. The depth of connection, the comfort of authenticity, and the richness of emotional interplay create an enduring, almost magnetic bond. Even everyday life benefits. Communication improves because both partners are grounded in self-awareness. Conflicts are resolved with collaboration rather than defensiveness. Responsibilities are shared in a balanced, fair manner. Decision-making is guided by clarity, not ego or fear. The partnership becomes a dynamic system of mutual growth, support, and joy. It is not perfect, but it is resilient, satisfying, and deeply rewarding. The freedom, authenticity, and intimacy that emerge from embracing these changes are not abstract concepts. They manifest in concrete ways. There is a lighter heart, a more open mind, and a steadier presence. Laughter is more frequent, conversations more meaningful, and touch more expressive. Both partners feel genuinely valued and understood. There is a profound sense of alignment with life itself. The past is honored, the present is embraced, and the future is approached with curiosity and calm anticipation. Ultimately, embracing these changes is a choice, a commitment to allow life's lessons to transform the way you relate to yourself and others. It is the decision to soften where fear once ruled, to strengthen where uncertainty once prevailed, and to engage in relationships with honesty, courage, and openness. The result is liberation from performance, alignment with your true self, and the emergence of an intimacy that is rich, steady, and deeply nourishing. And here lies the beauty of life after 60. When a man softens and a woman strengthens, they do not just survive the passage of time. They flourish within it. They discover that freedom is the absence of pretense, authenticity is the embrace of self, and intimacy is the connection that transcends surface, expectation, and ego. They experience love not as a transaction or obligation, but as a profound exchange of presence, understanding, and mutual growth. This is the ultimate gift of embracing change, a life lived fully, a self expressed freely, and a love shared without fear. When men soften and women strengthen, when both honor their evolution and step into their truth, the result is a relational richness that is rare, precious, and transformative. What if the very things you once feared losing with age, your looks, your speed, your roles, were never the source of your real power at all? What if the most surprising transformation of life after 60 is discovering the parts of yourself you never had time, courage, or clarity to explore. We spend our early decades performing masculinity and femininity like roles in a play. Men are told to be strong, stoic, providers. Women are told to be nurturing, patient, agreeable, and for years, we shape ourselves around those expectations. But what happens when life slows down, when pressure eases, when approval no longer matters as much? The truth is, something remarkable emerges, something softer, wiser, and far more powerful. For men, strength used to mean holding everything in, fixing, solving, carrying the emotional weight of the world in silence. But after 60, many men begin to feel something unexpected relief. They discover that vulnerability is not weakness, it's connection. They begin to soften, not because they're losing their masculinity, but because they finally feel safe enough to show the parts of themselves they hid for decades. A man at 60 is often more open, more emotionally aware, and more capable of empathy than he ever was at 30 or 40. He becomes a man who listens rather than reacts, who feels rather than suppresses, who loves without the armor he once believed he needed. This is not the fading of masculinity, it is the refinement of it. The evolution into what authors like Robert Bly called the deeper masculine. A presence defined by groundedness, truth, and emotional courage. And for women, the shift is just as powerful, but in the opposite direction. After years of giving, supporting, and putting others first, something inside a woman over 60 begins to rise. A new strength takes shape, not the strength of force, but the strength of boundaries, clarity, and self-respect. Women begin to speak more directly. They say no without guilt. They choose peace over pleasing. They step into a confident femininity, one that is independent, self-knowing, and honest. This is the feminine strength celebrated in works like Women Who Run with the Wolves, the strength of a woman who finally trusts her instincts, her desires, and her voice. And here is the beautiful part. These shifts do not push men and women apart. They bring them closer, because when men soften emotionally and women strengthen internally, something profound happens. They meet in the middle. They begin to understand each other in ways they never did before. The man becomes more expressive, the woman becomes more decisive, the emotional labor becomes shared, not one-sided. The relationship becomes teamwork instead of imbalance. They become two whole humans, not two half identities trying to complete each other. After 60, both genders become more authentic. Men stop pretending they don't feel. Women stop pretending they don't know what they want. And together, they create a space where honesty, respect, and emotional intimacy grow naturally. This is why love in later life often feels more peaceful, more nourishing, and more stable. Because both people are finally living from their truth, not their roles. And perhaps the most surprising part, aging doesn't reduce attraction. It redefines it. Attraction becomes less about appearance and more about presence, less about impressing and more about understanding, less about intensity and more about emotional safety. A softened man is deeply attractive to a woman who has grown strong. A strengthened woman is deeply attractive to a man who has learned to feel. Together, they create a dynamic that is both tender and powerful. So the question becomes, what if the shift you're experiencing is not the loss of who you were, but the arrival of who you were meant to be? What if the softening and strengthening happening inside you is your evolution toward a more balanced, more connected, more truthful version of yourself? This is the gift of life after 60, the stage where masculinity grows deeper, femininity grows fuller, and both begin to complement each other in a way that makes love, not youthful, frantic love, but mature, steady, soul-level love, more possible than ever. Because when you stop performing, you finally start living. And when you start living, you discover that the greatest version of yourself isn't behind you. It's unfolding right now.